If you're the type who loves exploring places full of nature, different cultures, and friendly people, then take note. Costa Rica has to be at the top of your list. This little piece of Central America is a true paradise for those who enjoy ecotourism. Trails in tropical forests, beaches with turquoise blue sea, active volcanoes smoking in the background, and biodiversity that looks like something out of a documentary. But it's not just the scenery that impresses. There are unusual stories, customs that break our expectations, and such a positive vibe that it's hard to leave the same way you arrived. Did you know that they haven't had an army since 1949? That they eat rice and beans for breakfast? Well, today Bello Mundo is taking you to a destination that is anything but obvious. Today we're going to find out why Costa Rica is one of the most fascinating and happiest countries on the planet. Number 1. Location and general information. Costa Rica is right in the heart of Central America, squeezed between the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific Ocean. This gives the country a kind of dual identity. On one side, Caribbean beaches with white sand, reggae-style villages, and crystal-clear waters. On the other, giant waves in the Pacific that attract surfers from all over the world. Despite being a small country, smaller than the state of Pernambuco, for example, it is home to an incredible variety of landscapes. In just a few hours on the road, you can leave a humid rainforest, cross a chain of volcanoes, pass through dry valleys, and end the day watching the sun dip into the sea. This compact geography makes Costa Rica a true natural laboratory. It is no coincidence that so many scientists, eco-tourists, and curious travelers choose the country as their destination. Just to give you an idea, even though it occupies less than 0.3% of the Earth's surface, Costa Rica is home to about 6% of all known species in the world. There are endless animals, plants, fungi, insects, birds, amphibians, all mixed together. In total, there are already more than 500,000 catalogued species. And this is reflected in the country's environmental policy. Almost a third of the territory is protected, whether by national parks, biological reserves, or wildlife refuges. It is as if the entire country has been transformed into a natural sanctuary. One example is Isla del Coco, an isolated island more than 300 miles off the mainland coast, considered a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. It is famous for its giant schools of fish, stingrays, and various types of sharks, including the legendary hammerhead shark. For divers, it's like an underwater Disneyland. Another striking fact is the butterflies. The country is home to about 90% of the species in Central America, and many of them are endemic. That is, they exist nowhere else in the world. More than 25% of Costa Rica's territory is an environmental conservation area. It's as if a quarter of the country were a giant ecological park. And here's the thing, they take it seriously. Sport hunting has been prohibited by law since 2012, and ecological tourism is highly regulated. Everything is designed to maintain the balance between nature and human presence. And since we're talking about living nature, we can't fail to mention the giants that shape this entire landscape. Volcanoes. Number 2. Land of volcanoes. If you enjoy adventure tourism, Costa Rica will win you over with its impressive volcanoes. The country is located right in the middle of the Pacific Ring of Fire, one of the regions with the highest seismic and volcanic activity in the world. There are about 200 volcanoes mapped throughout the territory, including large and small cones, and at least 5 remain active and are closely monitored. And the most interesting thing is that many of them are accessible, with trails, viewpoints, visitor centers, and views that look like something from another planet. The most famous of all is the Arenal volcano near the town of La Fortuna. For centuries, it was considered dormant. Until 1968, it suddenly exploded and woke up with a bang. For decades, it spewed lava and incandescent gases, becoming a postcard image of Costa Rica. Today, Arenal is calmer. It entered a dormant phase in 2010, but it still emits smoke and heats the region's springs. The surrounding spas take full advantage of this. Another giant is Poas. It has one of the largest craters in the world and an acid lake with a surreal color, almost a chemical turquoise blue. It constantly releases gases, and the park closes from time to time as a precaution. But on open days, you can get close to the crater and smell the strong scent of sulfur, a reminder that this is far from just a beautiful landscape. In addition to these two, there is also Irazu, the highest in the country, at 11,200 feet. The landscape up there looks like the moon, with volcanic ash on the ground and an almost mystical atmosphere. The surroundings are covered by a dense fog, which explains the nickname of the local team from the city of Cartago, the Brumosos, the foggy ones. But in terms of beauty, perhaps nothing compares to Rincón de la Vieja, a mix of volcanoes with waterfalls, trails, bubbling mud, and hot springs. The scenery is so beautiful, it will drive you crazy. Number 3. History. Long before Europeans ventured into these parts with their caravels and crosses, the region we now know as Costa Rica was already home to several indigenous peoples. There were several different ethnic groups, each with their own languages, unique customs, and very distinct ways of life. Each group occupied its own territory, respecting the cycles of nature, growing food, producing art, and maintaining traditions that had been passed down for generations. Everything began to change in 1502, when Christopher Columbus first arrived on the Caribbean coast of the region. It was a quick visit, but enough to pique the interest of the Spanish. The actual colonization began a few decades later. But to be honest, the Spanish were not very excited about what they found. Unlike Mexico and Peru, for example, Costa Rica had no gold or silver mines, nor large indigenous empires to exploit and enslave. It was a difficult territory to access, with mountains, forests, native resistance, and little economic return. Because of this, the colony ended up being somewhat forgotten by the Spanish crown. Ironically, this neglect turned out to be a stroke of luck. While other regions were squeezed by cycles of exploitation, Costa Rica grew in a more autonomous, rural, and decentralized way. Without a powerful aristocratic elite or an extremely oppressed working class, the country ended up developing a more egalitarian society based on small property, family farming, and community values. This is where the rural middle class began to form, which, decades later, would become one of the country's most striking features. Independence came in 1821, as in much of Central America, with the breakup of Spanish rule. For a time, Costa Rica was still part of the Mexican Empire, and then the Federal Republic of Central America. But in 1838, it decided to go it alone. Since then, the country has been writing its own history, without major civil wars, bloody dictatorships, or a series of military coups, as happened with many of its neighbors. It did have its difficult moments, such as the Civil War of 1948, which we will talk about later. But, in general, the country has built a history of stability and peace. After understanding this past marked by resistance, autonomy, and unlikely decisions, it is time to look at who makes Costa Rica what it is today: its people. Because in the end, that is what gives a country its soul. Number 4. Population, languages, and religion. With just over 5 million inhabitants, the country has a relatively small population. Most Costa Ricans are mestizos, people of mixed indigenous and European ancestry, the result of centuries of intermingling between the original peoples and the Spanish colonizers. Even today, there are indigenous communities that maintain their languages, traditions, and ways of life. Peoples such as the Bribris, Cabicares, Borucas, and Malicus live in forest regions, mainly in the south and in the mountains. They speak languages that almost no one outside the area understands, live close to nature, and have their own beliefs and rituals. Spanish is the official language. It is everywhere, in schools, on street signs, in newspapers. But because of tourism, many people also speak English, especially in beach areas. And in the Caribbean regions, there is also Creole, which is a mixture of English and African, spoken by the descendants of workers from Jamaica. In terms of religion, the majority of the population is Catholic. Churches are part of the landscape. Religious festivals are important, and faith is present in the lives of many people. But the country also has evangelicals, spiritists, atheists, agnostics, and people who follow indigenous religions connected to the land, rivers, and forests. The Constitution recognizes Catholicism as the official religion, but guarantees religious freedom. In other words, everyone believes what they want, and that is respected. Number 5. Gastronomy. If there is one thing that Costa Ricans are proud of, it is their everyday food. The basis is simple and similar to that of other Latin American countries: rice, beans, plantains, corn, vegetables, and always some meat, whether grilled, boiled, or even breaded. One of the most popular dishes is called casado, and no, it has nothing to do with marriage. The name comes from the custom of marrying the ingredients in a single dish. It consists of rice, beans, a portion of meat or fish, salad, and a fried plantain. It's cheap, fills you up, and tastes like home cooking. Another very typical dish is the Costa Rican tamale, a delicacy prepared with crushed green corn, seasoned with sugar or salt, then cooked and wrapped in a banana leaf. Inside, it can contain meat, vegetables, or even a sweet filling. Some people even make tamales at Christmas. Now, what really stands out is gallo pinto, the Costa Rican breakfast. This dish consists of white rice and black beans, usually leftovers from the day before, all sautéed together with onion, garlic, cilantro, and a typical sauce called salsa Lizano. This sauce is very famous there. It has a bittersweet flavor and gives the food a special touch. Gallo pinto is usually accompanied by scrambled eggs, fresh cheese, a little cream, and often a fried plantain on the side. In fact, bananas are everywhere in Costa Rican cuisine. They use bananas in everything. There are salted fried bananas, caramelized bananas for dessert, mashed bananas, green banana chips, and baked bananas with cinnamon. They even put bananas in soup, if you can believe it, and that has everything to do with their way of life. Number 6. Pure life. If there is one phrase that defines Costa Rica, it is pure life. There, you hear pure life all the time as a greeting, hello, goodbye, thank you, and in so many other situations. But the most curious thing is that pure life goes beyond words. It's a way of life. It's as if Costa Ricans have found the secret formula for taking life more lightly. The idea is to value the present, respect others, and not stress over things that aren't worth it. Is it raining? Pure life. Are you late? Pure life. Did something go wrong? Pure life too. This philosophy spreads to everything. In traffic, for example, no one honks or swears. People stop, wait, breathe. If the bus didn't come, so be it. The important thing is to stay calm, and this ends up being a reflection of the culture as a whole. The entire country revolves around this more relaxed, optimistic, and kind mentality. It's no wonder that, even though it's not a rich country, Costa Rica keeps appearing in the rankings of the happiest places in the world. Costa Rica keeps appearing on lists of the happiest countries on the planet, and this is not a recent phenomenon. In 2023, for example, it was considered the happiest country in Latin America, and it was among the 25 happiest in the world. In previous years, it has even appeared in the global top 15. Not bad for a tiny country, right? Number 7. Addresses without names. There are some things that only Costa Rica can explain. One of them is the address system, or rather the lack thereof. There, it's not much use asking for the street name and house number. What you'll hear most of the time is something like, "It's about 2 blocks after the square, near that huge tree, next to the blue house." And this applies both to visiting a friend and receiving a package. Instead of street names and precise numbering, the custom is to use landmarks. Anything goes: a famous bakery, the church on the corner, the neighborhood pharmacy, an old statue, a giant tree, even things that no longer exist. In smaller towns, this logic works so well that even the post office follows the scheme. Postmen learn to navigate this maze of references without any drama or difficulty. It's as if each neighborhood has its own collective memory, passed down by word of mouth. Of course, in more urban and touristy areas, there are already street names, signs, and pins on Google Maps. But even so, Costa Ricans remain faithful to the original method. And if you ask why, the answer comes with that famous smile: because it's always been that way. All of this seems strange, but if there is one thing that stands out in this country, it is how it decided to abolish its army. Number 8. A country without an army. While much of the world continues to invest billions in tanks, fighter jets, state-of-the-art weapons, and displays of force, Costa Rica has taken the opposite path. Since 1949, this small Central American country has decided to live without armed forces. That's right, there is simply no army there. And the most curious thing is that this decision came right after a conflict. A year earlier, in 1948, Costa Rica had just emerged from a civil war. It was a short war. It lasted 44 days, but intense enough to leave open wounds. It all started because of a troubled election, with accusations of fraud and a political crisis that quickly turned into armed conflict. Out of the chaos emerged a new leader, José Figueres Ferrer, a politician with bold ideas and an unconventional discourse. As soon as he took power, he did something no one expected. Instead of strengthening military control, he did exactly the opposite. He abolished the army. To mark the decision in history, Figueres took a hammer, climbed onto the old national barracks, and in front of a crowd, destroyed part of the building's wall with his own hands. The gesture became a symbol of a new era. It was as if he were saying, "The only battle from now on will be for education, health, and peace." And you know what's most impressive? The idea worked. Even without an army, Costa Rica is now one of the safest and most stable countries in Latin America. This does not mean that the country is unprotected. There is a public force which functions as a strengthened national police force, prepared to deal with internal security, emergencies, and even natural disasters. In the event of an external threat, The country can resort to international treaties and request support from partner nations. But the big difference is how the money that would have been spent on weapons and soldiers was redirected to other fundamental areas. And that's where the real Costa Rican revolution begins. In education, the leap is visible. Today, more than 97% of the population is literate. Virtually all children attend school, which is public, free, and compulsory. Even in the most isolated rural areas, it is common to find well-structured schools, and many of them are bilingual, with classes in Spanish and English. This is because the country is betting heavily on sectors such as tourism, the environment, and technology, and wants to prepare the new generation for an increasingly globalized world. In health, the scenario is similar. Costa Rica has a solid public system called Caja Costarricense de Seguro Social. Medical care is universal, reaching from large centers to the most remote regions. Life expectancy there exceeds 80 years, which puts Costa Rica on par with wealthy countries when it comes to longevity. All this combined with a more peaceful life, healthy eating, contact with nature, and a strong sense of community. Now you understand why there is so much happiness, right? And now I want to know from you. Have you heard of Costa Rica before? What do you think of Costa Rica's courageous choice to live without an army? Do you think this would work in other countries? Tell us in the comments. And of course, if you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and share it with someone you love, history, and curiosities. See you in the next video.